All right. Why don't we get ahead with our agenda then? We'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. Start with roll call first to make sure we're all here. And we'll start. Shar Douglas, are you here?
I am in Royal Oak.
Excellent. And Peter Provenzano?
Yes, I'm here.
And Alex Spike, are you here?
I'm here.
And I am here as well, Tom McGannon.
We need to indicate where we are calling from.
Oh, okay. I am calling from Southfield.
I am calling in from Oakland Township.
All right, Royal Oak.
Okay, thank you. Next up is public comment. Is there anyone that has indicated they'd like to address the group?
No one is in our waiting room.
Okay, great. And then next up, then we will move to approval of the minutes from our meeting of January 13th. You've had the chance to review them. Any updates to these minutes?
Move to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
All right, all in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, say aye. We'll do that through roll call, starting with Shar Douglas.
Aye.
And going next to Alex Fike.
Aye.
Peter Provenzano.
Aye.
And I will say aye as well. Thank you for the motion and for the approval. Next, we will go to financials to receive and file those. Julie, if you'd like to share those with the group.
Sure. Okay, can you see the financial document here?
Yes.
Okay, so the noteworthy changes are on page 2. I've been trying to do all of the business out of the 701 account that we have. And you can see the last 3 entries are the pass-through money that we received from multiple sources for the library and for the senior center. So that money was deposited and now taken out and given to the proper city entities.
Okay, great. And Julie, as a heads up, I think there are 2 outstanding payments that I understand coming from Beaumont Health sponsorships of the senior center for transportation, and those are coming to your attention as well.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
You bet. All right, so we will put these to file. Thank you, Julie, for presenting them. And next up, we will go to review our agenda. If you can scroll down and look at what we have to talk through today, and we'll see if there's any additions or changes to, to the agenda.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor say aye. We'll do it by roll call vote. Shar Douglas?
Yes.
Alex Spike?
Yes.
Peter Provenzano?
Yes.
And Tom McGannon says yes as well. All right. We'll next review from Julie, payables approval request for two items.
Yes, so as you can see, I have $500 here for Ethan Martin. My intention would be to get the approval now and hold off on paying until we have the final materials from Ethan. We've struggled to get documents that are workable, namely the letterhead. And he and I have been talking back and forth. And so I think, in the next week or so, we should have that remedied. I certainly, if you do in fact approve this today, I wouldn't send it until we have his signature on the branding document that Mark List will talk about. in his report, and then also the materials in working order for us. The second is just a standard pass-through. This comes from the Allen Family Foundation, which is related to the Hargraves Chevrolet, and they've made a $5,000 donation to the animal shelter.
Great. Do we know much about that donation, or what the Allen's connection are to the animal shelter?
No, I don't know the connection, but when I let the animal shelter manager know, she said that she had a conversation with him, and she was pleasantly surprised how generous the donation was. So she knew that it was coming, but didn't know that it would be, this generous offer of $5,000.
Great. Do we, knowing that it came in through the foundation, what is our acknowledgement process for the donor thank you, or is the shelter manager handling that?
It will be both of us.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm assuming that these need a motion for approval. Is there such coming from this committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just point out that the minutes will say that we're approving the payment to the designer contingent on receiving all deliverables and his signature on the agreement, and transferring $5,000 to the animal shelter fund.
Great. All righty, we'll close discussion and we'll do a roll call vote for approval, starting with Shar,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
and Pete.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. All right, we'll whiz down our agenda to director's report. Back to you, Julie.
Okay.
Look at that great photo.
In my defense, that was Judy's idea, not mine.
It was a great idea.
I know, great idea. Okay, so for this past month, most of my efforts have been spent getting the video finalized and the social media pieces in place with the help of Shar and Judy Davids. And we'll talk about the event a little bit further down on the agenda and get into some of the details there. Some of the other things are still talking with the interim city attorney about her opinion relative to moving the funds to 701. And I hope that we can have the opinion by the next meeting, the March meeting, and I will continue to work with her. And then next item is about Ethan Martin. We already mentioned that. And I've also been keeping the Royal Oak Civic Foundation webpage updated with some help from other editors and Judy Davids, of course. So that's about it. I wonder if you have any questions. By the way, this image with the boy and the bull, and this meme setup, that was something by Judy Davids also. So she did a wonderful job making these for each of the organizations, and our webpage image also. So a huge thank you to Judy.
It's very nice. She did a nice job, as do you. Any questions of Julie's report or any of the projects?
No questions. Just want to thank and compliment all the work that Julie has done, and Judy, and obviously Shar, and making this so successful.
Thank you.
We note applause in the minutes. All right. Let's move into the city attorney's report then. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last meeting, you requested a couple of small changes to the agreement with Mr. Martin in paragraphs 5 and 6. Those are done and sent to you. Other than that, I'm waiting for the interim city attorney just to kind of eyeball it, and then we'll get ready, coordinate with Julie to send it off to Mr. Martin to get his signature.
Okay, any questions to Mark on this? All right, we had approved this at a prior meeting with those changes, so I think we're all set now that they've all been made. And just to clarify the order, we will ask the recipient to sign it first and then take it through all of the Royal Oak based signatures, correct?
Yes, that's our habit here. That way it prevents situations where the city commission has approved something and then we can't get the signature and it's kind of laying out there.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
All right, if there are no questions, we'll keep moving down our agenda and actually back to the topic of Kitsch and the status of our MOU.
Okay, so the status is that it's still pending an opinion by the interim city attorney. But I have sent through to you the draft MOU as it stands now. That had review from the interim city attorney and also the finance director. So let me, there we go. So it's very similar to the MOU that we viewed 6 or 7 months ago. It was just moved that the 701 account is now called custodial fund. This is where the interim city manager or city attorney is, apologies. She's looking into the legality of staff hours being donated in a certain sense to the foundation for my part-time executive director position here. So if you see any edits that need to be made or have concerns about particular items, please let me know, and we do have time to take this back to the interim city attorney.
Looks good to me.
Okay, so more to come.
Yep, just this the opinion from the interim city attorney. And once that's made, I guess it depends on how the opinion reads, right? Whether we need to make adjustments to this document. So yes, how about we say more to come?
Okay, so we'll continue to keep this in our unfinished business as we get the final opinions, et cetera.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And forgive my parliamentary procedure. Do we need a motion to keep it there, or do we just append it to keep it going?
In the past, we've just been leaving it there.
Okay, great. All right, let's move down our agenda then to the reporting on our kickoff event. So again, let's start with kudos. Shar, great idea, putting the concept together. Julie, great support, working with city divisions and helping us get some nice hits. Anything including, I think, cranes. Was there an Oakland Press article, I think, as well, and beyond all the other Royal Oak-based publications too. So all good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely a huge thank you to Commissioner Douglas. This was a great idea. I do have some exciting news. One of our organizations passed the goal of $2,500 today.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So let's see if I can share that. So there it is. Open Hands Food Pantry. They are $2,560 as of right now.
That's great.
Fantastic.
And both of the other organizations are moving right along. Salvation Army has $700, and the Blessings in the Backpack is at $1,910.
That's great. Oh, I see a corporate donation from Hillian Homes too. So
Right.
it's been a nice kind of self-identifier project for folks who support different efforts in Royal Oak. So just lots of good things coming out of this this promotion.
Julie,
That's right.
what's our total?
Oh, do you have a calculator? I can read them to you.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, 1,910.
Yep.
2,560 and 700.
Got it. Thanks.
5170 raised so far.
Great. Great. So, and keep in mind that's not, it hasn't even been a week, right? The 12th, Friday the 12th will be 1 week. So in just a few days, you know, a bulk amount of their goals have been met. And that brings up a side question. I'm not sure if this part of the agenda is where we would talk about it, but we made a guess that this event would last until March 1st. And I wonder if perhaps that might be too long, and maybe it should be a 2-week event, and then we can start thinking about our next option for an event, the next option for fundraising.
Do we have the opportunity to promote as groups reach the total that they've reached it and we're still raising funds, and maybe use the social channels to both acknowledge where we are, thank donors. So we route, if you like to thank the don't. I don't know whether they would list them exactly, but I think that we'd like to thank the 50 donors who helped Blessing. Which group got to? It was the third one.
Open Hands Food Pantry.
Open Hands Food Pantry get to their goal, and we're continuing to run this promotion to help these two organizations help our citizens. Maybe we have some ongoing social pushes to acknowledge and continue to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom, I'll defer to you as the development professional here, but another strategy might be to not reveal whether those groups have, where they are, and to just keep people donating.
Also, it's a great idea. We are only matching up to a certain amount though, correct?
Right.
That's right. Yeah, so one of the options that we have with the GoFundMe platform is that we can increase the goal. So we could talk to Open Hands Food Pantry, and I guess perhaps it's up to the organization, because there could be some benefit in closing it down and taking the money, right? Because then they can turn that into food more quickly, or they can up their goal and continue on this fundraising wave that they have going right now, continuing the momentum and perhaps increasing their portion of the fundraising. So I wonder if the answer to my question should be that we talk to each of the organizations and ask them how they would like to move forward.
I like what Shar had said as well. I wonder if we would consider taking we've helped a bit, but we can help even more tactic. And would we consider, if they up their goal, would we consider also upping our match?
What if we were to up our match if everyone hits the first round of match? Just to game it a little. Is that weird?
Well, I have thought about, waiting to see what their totals are at the end and saying, guess what? We're going to match all of it.
So why don't we try and combine a couple ideas here then? Why don't we promote where we are, Or why don't we promote the need one more time first? And then follow that up with a reporting recognition piece that, so at least we've got another hit via social media to really push the message out even further. People might have missed the initial promotion of it. And then we'll start the reward cadence after that. And then we can end in either a match or an increase, or however we want to position that.
I mean, I don't want to cut this off before, the other two have had a chance to reach their goals or to reach their 2,500 or as much as they can.
Right.
I mean, I want to give away all $7,500, our share of the match.
Right.
How long did we plan on leaving it up there?
Until March 1st was our guess. But at this point, that feels like a long time, given one of the organizations has already hit the finish line in 5 days.
Can you, even though they've reached their goal, I think they actually surpassed their goal, can people still donate to them?
Yes. I think the answer is yes. I can check into that, but I know for sure that we can up the goal. So
I'd be inclined to, I mean, as you said, it's only been a week. I'd be inclined to leave it up another week or so, let's say. The others may surpass their goal and Salvation Army may meet their goal. Because at some point, if someone logs on, they might see that the others have surpassed their goal and they may, gravitate more towards the Salvation Army if they haven't yet. I'm not really sure. I might be apt to just kind of see what happens for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I've been doing social media posts, and I've got another round of them to do today and over the next couple of days. I kind of try to trickle them out so people don't, who belong to 5 groups don't see it all at once.
So let's try to leave this up for two more weeks to see if everyone agrees where we end up. So we're promoting the need. Let's start a reward reporting cadence in 2 weeks. So we can talk about our first program has been successful and hopefully 2 of the 3, if not all 3, have reached their goal and beyond. And then let's use part of that reporting to talk about, it's a thank you to the community for immediately reacting to this need. And if we decide at that time that we want to, we can make the decision today based on the money we have available to reward up to an additional amount. And also let's translate the dollars raised, ask the 3 groups what it will do exactly, or so that we can report that specific benefit that because this group raised this plus the match will now feed 6,000 people. So we've got a dollar raised and a number of people helped as a final stat that we can talk about its impact. Do you feel like that combines a lot of the different ideas that we've discussed here? Does that sound like a good plan, or extend the fundraiser even more if we decide we need to hold it for 3 weeks? Thoughts?
Do we, what do we push them to do? Does that make sense? Like, I'm thinking just about like, do we push them to share any of our marketing material or like anything like that?
yes, I sent out an email before the kickoff with their specific memes, their specific banners, example text language for social media, links to our website, links to our video. They got like a toolkit, and I asked them to make sure that they use those, to tap into as many social media options as they have. And for the Salvation Army and Open Hands Food Pantry, since they're associated with a house of worship, that they use their services, if appropriate, to talk about the fundraiser to help fight local hunger. And as far as I can tell, they've all been using the social media pretty well.
Okay, cool. Sorry to ask that really quick question.
Yeah, no problem at all. Tom, one question I have for you. You said to have it going for 2 more weeks. So are you thinking a 3-week total since we're almost at 1 week? Or did you mean 2 weeks total?
Let's add 2 more weeks to it. So this will be a 3-week campaign.
Okay.
And week 4 would be when we start doing the recognition and impact reporting. And the piece that I'd like to really focus on is, let's throw out some stats. Like we had, 55 donors come from Royal Oak, providing an average gift of this amount, helping this amount of people too. Let's figure out what we think is impactful to both thank, inspire, show relevance, and show that with an immediate need, we had an immediate impact and the community has responded.
So if we wait 2 weeks, you've suggested 2 weeks. If we go 2.5 weeks, it's March 1st. I'm inclined to stick with our March 1st deadline, just not to so Julie doesn't have to spend time, explaining why we've cut it off early.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
The only issue I can think of is if the Open Hands Food Pantry would like to cash out.
What do you mean?
They've met their goal, and if they're inclined to take the money right now to purchase additional food right now, are you okay with that? So the fundraiser would last for the other 2 until they hit theirs or March 1st, whichever comes first. But Open Hands Food Pantry could cash out if they wanted to.
I think
that's like a whole nother round of messaging, more copywriting, more explanations. I don't think Open Hands is going to be sad if people continue to give to them.
Is that something we even have to publicize? I mean, if we wanted to make sure that the impact was happening immediately, couldn't we cut them the check for their $2,500 today, or how much they've raised, and continue to raise funds and then pay out the additional once they've gotten it as well? So even though we've given them the money, we can still account for the funds that are in their account for the fundraiser so that we are having immediate need or immediate impact rather, excuse me.
Yep, I think that is doable.
Any problems with that or unintended consequences? I do like the idea that we've raised the money and gotten it to them immediately so they could help. I don't know that that's even part of the story we have to tell.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I guess I would talk to them. Yeah, I'm sure they'd like the money, but if waiting 2 weeks, so I guess I'm a little bit more of an advocate of just sticking to what we said we would do. When I think about this, March 1st, we take it down. It's possible that they are all 3 could have surpassed their goal. That would be fantastic. I think we stick to the match amount. And then we get the money over to the charities as soon as we can after March 1st. If they really need it earlier than March 1st, I'm sure we can make some arrangements to do that. But I don't know how big of a need there is for the cash sooner than 2 weeks. They would know.
Well, but they know the money is coming.
Right.
They know we're good for it. They know so the money that went into the GoFundMe account, don't they get that directly anyway?
No, it's set up in the name of the Royal Oak Civic Foundation. So all donors get a receipt that says you've donated to the Civic Foundation. That will go into our account, and then we'll have to do a payables approval and then ship it out to each of them.
So, but nevertheless, they all know how much they've raised,
Plus, yep, plus our match.
If one of their vendors says, hey, I can deliver extra cases of peas, they know they're going to get the money to be able to pay the bill. I'm just trying to keep things simple from an administrative point of view from Julie, and not kind of special things or one-offs.
That's
Yeah, I
good.
think we stick to it.
Stick to it.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's good advice, Shar.
Good, thanks.
Right, so any other questions then? Are we agreed that we're going to move, can kind of keep the original tent stakes through March 1st? Of course, we've allocated the extra $2,500 per group as they reach those fundraising targets, and then we can, do you want to decide at that time at our next meeting if we want to do more, or do we want to just leave it at the 2,500 for now, so that we said what we're going to do, we've done what we're going to do, and it's done.
I'm inclined to wait till our March meeting, decide then, I mean, certainly vote to approve the match, and then decide if we want to match everything they've raised.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Any other questions about the project then? It sounds like, great success pretty quickly, and a generous Royal community that's come forward to help these three groups. So just to be clear on promotion for the next 2 weeks will be social media postings that keep this kind of top of mind to connected Royal Oak constituents. Are we asking our partners to do any additional communication, or are we going to handle that exclusively?
Well, it's in their interest to do it, to promote it through their channels.
Yeah, so we should tell them what we're doing and ask them to do the same. However they want to promote it for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I've been doing that informally. Today I sent a note to all of them and said, guess what? We were also in Cranes. I included the link and some draft text for them to post that. So whenever we get, an additional hit, if there's something that they could send a post out, I'm sending it to them to ask them to do it.
Okay.
Where was that, Julie?
At Cranes Detroit Business.
Get out! Awesome.
Yeah, and I thought I sent that to you guys also.
You
Check
did.
your email.
Yeah, you emailed it to us because I tried to click on the video and realized it was still in private mode.
Actually, that was a different issue. We
Okay.
had to adjust the video very quickly last night. But it's up and ready to go, and so it's the issue is moot at this point.
Okay.
So Shar, are you able to find that, or
No, unless it was, maybe you put it in an email that was another subject and I didn't scroll down far enough.
I think it would have been media hits, something like that. But if you don't see it after the meeting, let me know and I'll be happy to forward it again.
About?
Yesterday in Cranes.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday afternoon. Was it yesterday? You forwarded it?
Yeah, because Pete forwarded it to me in the morning and then I sent it out.
I don't see it.
Okay. All right. I'll resend after the meeting here. Resend to Shar. Okay, great. And then before we move from this topic, if you don't mind, I just sent you all an email with a link. And this is a test for some free software that was mentioned at our last meeting called Mentimeter. And let me. If you can open that email I just sent and click on the link and then use the code that they've given you. I set up 2 basic slides to see how this works, and I would love to be able to test it on you.
I'm waiting for you to share.
Okay.
I don't know if you want us to let you know where we're at.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you see? Alex?
Just please wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
Okay. You see it now?
What?
No, we're seeing the results.
Okay. So one person has answered. Okay, maybe this is not working the way I thought it might.
So each of us voted something differently is what I'm thinking. That's what that shows. Like one of us saw it in Oakland County Times, one saw it in the Royal Tribune, one saw it in Detroit Cranes, and one of us read all of them.
Okay.
But I saw it in both the Times and the Tribune.
Okay. You were allowed to pick two. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I will go back to the drawing board for this. Oh, look, somebody. Okay.
All right, mine just looks like mine just went through.
Okay. All right. Okay. So anyway, this is a very interesting application. Thank you, Tom, for bringing this up at the last meeting. I like the idea of having some live surveys that we can do. And I think in the future, not necessarily for our board meetings, of course, but reaching out to the community, this could be super helpful. So
Good idea.
appreciate it. Okay, I'm ready to move on.
Was there a second slide coming for this?
There is, but I can't figure out how to get there from here.
Oh,
And I don't want to spend the time.
okay, no worries.
Okay.
So anything else on the kickoff event that we want to discuss today? If not, we'll move to a discussion on our third-party event policy. All right, let's pull up the third-party event policy. You would have received that in your email as well. It's the 2.0 version of our last discussion. We wanted the team to spend more time looking at it to see if there was anything else that they thought about, and for us to discuss conceptually, does this handle all the type of third-party events that we would need? Thank you for bringing it up, because I know we made some changes to it. So let's start our discussion first with your thoughts on narrowing the scope of what, and does this document do it?
Yes.
Yay! So we all agree that it's important to have a policy. We can start there. There was some probably request for clarification on the types of events that we would work on. And I wonder if we need to define that as a part of this document. And it's the only piece that I thought of after reviewing it for the last, since our last meeting. Should we define what the different types of third-party policies are more strongly?
That's referring to what page? Bottom of page 1, bottom of page 2?
Hang on, let me look.
Or
Okay.
was that where you were at, Tom?
Yeah, hang on, let me pull mine up. It's loading pretty slowly on my computer.
And can you all see the copy that I have up on the share screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So while Tom pulls his up, I'll just let you know, and maybe I said this in the email packet, that these edits on the side, they come from me rewatching last month's meeting and all of the conversation that went back and forth and questions. And so I just plugged things in here in hopes that we wouldn't lose what we were talking about last time.
So what made me think of this was our discussion around point 14 about what we won't support. And I'm wondering if we need to either define as a piece of that what we will do, and then what we won't do as companion pieces, Or we need to start off the third-party policy with a definition of what a third-party event is. So we would then substitute in number 1 is where I was thinking this might go, that a third-party event includes the following. Would be an event that a potential sponsor brings forward to us for consideration for our partnership that would be a pass-through event, meaning they host it completely on our behalf and we show up for a check. And then there would, another category would be something where there's a bit more, more sweat equity that we would provide for a much higher result. And those would typically be tied to a specific project that we've identified, or would be tied to a partner organization in the city that we would assist with that type of project. Do those explanations feel like they make sense, or do they still require additional clarity so that someone reading this document would understand what those potentially could be? And there might be a third one we might identify as well, or 4. Does that feel like it's helping to narrow it, or does it feel like it still lends questions?
I think it helps to define it a little bit better. Because I do think it's difficult to really understand when you read this, what do we mean by third party?
So question. I mean, we have the ability to refuse to conduct any or accept any fundraising agreement we want. I mean, it's not like we're using this document to solicit people. Really, we're using it to manage people who come to us and say, hey, we want to do a fundraiser for you. So do we need to be that specific? I mean, is someone going to take us to court because we said, you know, simply, no, thanks, we don't want to?
No, but it helps to manage expectations that a lot, and it's one of the reasons that I've used this document type professionally, so that people have an understanding that not everything will be accepted. And it creates a gate first that, do you meet this minimum criteria first, versus just that everything's a great idea. And they need to understand, because special events as a fundraising tool, it's the most expensive, most labor intensive way to raise money, and that their event could lose money too. So they have to have done their homework in advance. So we're not spending a lot of time fending off great ideas. We're instead focused on bringing forward great ideas.
Well, but I think we've got that here. I mean, we've told them, you know, how much they'll, you know, what percentage, the question is what percentage of gross revenue comes back to us.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of conditions here. How much more information do we need, or how will what you're proposing narrow what we'll accept?
Right. Our conversation from last time, we got a little stuck in with a member organization or a current city organization coming forward looking for assistance for an event project. And so that's what drove me to try and provide some more definitions as to the types of events and what they're called. But again, if we don't think it's necessary, because we've outlined the end parameters of the finances that we want and things like that, does it provide some definition up front? Is that helpful? And it may not be.
I'm ready to approve this and move on.
Do we want to add anything under 14A?
Well, I don't know that we need to specify marijuana because nobody can give it away anyway.
There are third parties that include any of the kind of stuff related to it. So, you know, if I'm thinking like events and stuff like that, the reason I included that is just because it's not federally approved and we don't want to run afoul of the IRS.
Ah,
But like I know other common things that many nonprofits do are related to, I mean, just put another way, like syntax related items, just because they're not always, their purpose is not always aligned with the values of a nonprofit if they're focused on like community development things. So
I'm okay with it as is. If Tom, if you were looking to define sort of the definition of a third party, I'm good with that up at the top. If you felt like we needed to define it a little bit more, but again, I tend to lean on this to, I understand the advantage or the idea that it's helpful to define or set expectations, but I think we should keep it as flexible as possible, so that we have the ability to decide what we want to enter into and what we don't. So I'm okay with it as is, quite honestly.
well, to Alex's question,
I probably wouldn't add anything more. I would leave, as you mentioned there, A and B.
yeah, because if you eliminate, any sort of booze, I mean, every charity in
Yeah.
town does a wagon o' cheer raffle. And I suppose we could say tobacco, but do people even do, raffle that? Well, and if a raffle item was or an auction item was a package from Smoky Joe's with a nice cigar box and stuff, I mean, would we not accept the money that resulted from that auction?
I think we would for that type. It's interpretable, but knowing that we have retailers that would likely provide those types of things to promote their businesses. But we also have other retailers who are promoting the other items though too, don't we?
I mean, I'm fine leaving it just as is. I to Pete's comment, it's worthwhile conversation, and obviously we could just cross this bridge when we need to if this comes up.
Yeah, we didn't mention firearms either.
Or in my comment, firearms. Hopefully no one's arms are on fire.
Firearms there, I see that.
Also have retailers. We have retailers of every type in Royal Oak, it looks like that way.
Yeah, so I have a clarifying question. So 14 says we will not approve events conducted by third parties that include raffles, prizes, or auctions of. What if the third party is a marijuana distribution company? What if it's the adult entertainment dance hall down the street? I mean, it doesn't say that we.
Yeah, and that's why I put that in there as a point of conversation. The 14A for me, we can't, because we don't want to entangle any of our funds with funds that are with a product that's not federally approved. So we just don't want to broach that. Perhaps we're just having a conversation that we don't need to have because we're going to follow federal law. We can't really issue under item 7 a compliant charitable tax receipt for donations that were made with federally non-approved things. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah. What I'm trying to get to is a clarification. Would we allow an event to be conducted by a marijuana distribution company in Royal Oak? Or is this about functionally what they provide during the event that we are having the bigger issue with?
I think the answer to your question is found in item 16. The discussion of, I mean, if a marijuana establishment had a fundraiser for us, then that becomes us accepting money from a marijuana business, which is a different subject than the Optimist Club raffling off a wagon o' cheer. I mean, what if we change this to say ROCF may not approve events conducted by third parties that includes raffles of all of that, marijuana, booze, firearms, and then it's up to us. You
Wouldn't we
know?
just stay silent on it then? Because we may not approve anything that comes to us.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
Mark, oh, go ahead. I was just going to call on our legal counsel for a minute. Mark, do you have any thoughts on this? Or do you think we should just go with what Pete's recommending and move on? I know I'm putting you on the spot. This isn't something.
I think leaving general and that we may not approve things is probably the best way to leave it for now. Although I did like your language about would not be affiliated with things that are outliers of state or federal law. And then we don't define it.
I guess when I look at 14, to give someone an idea of the types of things that we're not likely going to, or approve is fine. But at the same time, I guess, and I go back to just staying silent, and in all practicality, the individual is likely going to contact our executive director, and the executive director is going to say, let me learn more about that. I can tell you that it's not likely that they'll, or and I'll that they'll approve this, but I'll bring it back to them, or so there's a conversation around there. It feels to me like this provides, if we stay silent on it, it says the things that I think it needs it to say, which is the administrative fee, the process, that it has to fit our mission. It leaves it, it sort of defines the expectation, but leaves it open-ended for us to determine what might fit our mission, because each circumstance can be so different. Look at the scenarios we just went through that might be centered around alcohol or marijuana. And you could think of circumstances where we're fine with it and circumstances where we wouldn't be fine with it. And we'd hate to be tied to a policy, right? So I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, then maybe we just tidy it up and slim it down and just say may not approve, and we can move on. And eliminate A and B.
Alex, are you taking notes for these?
I am.
Okay, great, thank you. And then another qualifier, if we're ready to move on from 14, is 13. Do we have a percentage that we want to put in there? I didn't catch that in last month's review.
Is there a certain standard? I have no idea what would be reasonable.
Yeah, me either.
The national average for cost to raise $1 is between 60 and 70 cents to raise $1. I think we landed on 50% because we wanted groups that
That's right.
fundraisers, if I remember correctly. So that way someone's not throwing an event and they're spending everything on the event, and it has a true charitable purpose.
Okay.
So are we agreed that 14 is going to be more general, that ROCF may not approve certain events? Is that even worth saying? Or is that something that's really more implied?
I think it's more implied, but I'd go with what the group thinks. If you just struck the whole 14 out, because you're saying it has to fit our mission, and it's up to us to determine what that really is.
Yeah, I agree with striking it.
Do we say anywhere here specifically that it is solely within our power to decide what offers we will accept and what we won't?
It was in one of the ones just above it. We scrolled up pretty quickly. Hang on. It was in like 8 or something like that. It's in one of,
Yeah, 10.
there it is, yep.
So boom, that's our get out of jail card.
Yeah. Let's pull 14 then if everyone, if there's no dissension to that.
Yeah, I think so.
And we'll update 13 to 50%. And if there's no other, everyone wants to take one more quick look at it, I will invite a motion to approve if there's nothing else that we need to update.
Also move.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion on this topic? Because we've done a good job discussing it for 2 meetings.
We did. We almost hit an Elmo there.
Yay! Seeing no discussion, I'll close. We'll call the question and do a roll call vote for approval of this motion to have a third-party event policy. Those in favor say aye by roll call. Shar?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
So in terms of the minutes, I'm just saying motion to approve the document as discussed, and Alex will send that document as discussed, right?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. We'll keep moving then. Next up is number 13, City Commissioners Community Priority Summary Discussion. And I think that, Shar, you clarified just after our meeting that the group was meeting pretty quickly and there was an opportunity to present.
Yes. So Julie and I put together a quick survey of the commissioners, left it pretty open-ended. List 5 priorities, that you think the community needs, and explain it. And then I just went through their answers. Everybody responded. And so I scored them. That is, every time somebody mentioned vulnerable populations or parks and recreation, it got a score point. And then any quotes that were submitted were added under that topic, so that where you see animal shelter, it got 2 points, but nobody said anything other than animal shelter. And Julie and I were both very gratified to see the extent to which the commissioners' opinions sort of matched the initial direction of the foundation. This seems like very good guidance for us as we go forward.
A pool?
I didn't write it. I just recorded what people said.
That'll
The
take
former-
some fundraising.
As a former Parks and Recreation Advisory Board member, that's a perennial wish list from the community.
Is it a pool?
And it's a perennial wish list because it's so expensive, particularly the infrastructure and maintenance related to it. Hence the splash pad of the newest park.
Yep.
So I would be remiss not to mention that there is a large pool, like a third of a mile away from the border of Royal Oak at 13 and John R. So just sorry to. That Royal Oak residents pay for.
It's a wave pool too, doesn't it?
Yep. And
And
a water slide
and a lazy river too. I've been there. It's a nice facility.
and a dog park.
For this, does it just make sense for us to
Hmm.
kind of review this, spend some time thinking about it, and bring it back for a future meeting for thought and conversation?
I like that idea. That you're pretty. I'm glad you were able to capture the thoughts. There's some really good ideas here.
I'm hopeful that some of them are not long-term needs,
Mhm.
particularly the top voted item. Just
Yeah.
gonna make that comment. And so I'm wondering if you all can see that I just sent Julie the comments, the updated document. So I am wondering if not that we ignore the need, but recognizing that the fundraiser that we're currently working on is related to the need due to the pandemic. And I'm wondering if we try and focus longer term next. So sorry, that's my initial reaction. Or if we're going to continue to do something for the immediate need, it is food.
That is item 14, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
I see a lot of this as being COVID. Well, obviously, yeah, COVID related, vulnerable population. So I see that more of a kind of an immediate, short term needs. A lot of these.
Yeah, so Shar is right. Number 14 on the agenda is the big picture visioning that we've had in the parking lot for some time. So maybe this would, this information will help us with that conversation.
Yeah.
Are we moving on?
Are we deciding we're going to table this to a future meeting after we spend more time thinking it through, or do we want to bring it forward as part of the big picture visioning?
I like the idea of bringing it forward as the big picture visioning, and maybe we could put it on the next meeting agenda.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we move forward? All right, so everyone spend some time studying this, thinking through some of the next processes, and as we move forward to new business, do we want to put parameters around what we're going to do with this list for the group to think about, and then we discuss it in more detail at our next meeting? Or are we ready to prioritize from this list and then think about our top priorities? How would you prefer to have this conversation?
Could we do a hybrid and maybe start the conversation now based on what our quick view of the commissioner's priorities are, and then have some time to think about it and come back for the March meeting?
Sure.
And make some decisions. So today could be, some banter back and forth.
Maybe set a time limit on it. Just say we're going to spend 15 minutes on this.
Let's do that. Why don't we spend 15 minutes and let's narrow our focus to think about, and then narrow it further with some specific action plans at our next meeting.
Cool.
Everyone agrees?
Yep.
So 15 minutes, thoughts on the top grouping, COVID. It's all around us. Can we impact any of this?
Was there an area here, Shar, that seemed to really bubble to the top as far as a priority or a major concern as you see it?
So I think the answers to the vulnerable population topic, I think a couple of these come from one person, that is like one of the respondents, and I tried not to see who said what.
Yep.
But the weight of this item came from two people at the most. Other than that, the needs were kind of across the spectrum among other participants. So while vulnerable population and Julie, correct, was it this one, Julie, where it was broken out two ways. I had broken out a COVID group and a at need populations group, and Julie said, if you look at it, they're really one and the same. So I would say that the weight of vulnerable populations is perhaps not as great as the entire commission feels. So perhaps it's a disproportionately weighty subject. And I go down to Parks and Recreation and I say, here is a program which is more broadly beneficial to the community and more in our wheelhouse in terms of the expertise. And here we have Alex, formerly Parks and Rec person. So I would make a case for, even though COVID homeless relief is scored high here, A, we've already done something about it. B, Parks and Recreation might be a better fit for us.
And of the Parks and Recreation, is there something here that you see that really kind of rises to the top?
No, because you really need to look at the Parks and Rec master plan and see what items are already budgeted for or planned for, and really go through that plan and find the big gaps that we know the city isn't going to be able to fill with its existing funds.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Say that, and then the I did want to highlight the community garden. I have seen some conversation in the community about the Royal Oak Environmental Advisory Board is looking to spearhead that work. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be included, but I am saying that there could be a ready partner with that work if we wanted to support them, as opposed to necessarily lead on it.
Well,
one of the things I was thinking about with the vulnerable populations component is we would likely be trying to support several existing organizations, which I know we've talked about before here. So sorry, just to add those couple of comments.
And as a member of the Environmental Advisory Board, I will say that, yes, the community garden idea is out there, but I don't know how money will help it to any great extent.
Do you think about, I look at this from a lens of I want to say like one-time funding as opposed to ongoing funding. I think about some of like our work. And so from that perspective, I look at some of the things that are physical or infrastructure components. So I look at like the last piece of park infrastructure, that could be a one-time activity for the Oak Civic Foundation. Obviously building a pool would be a one-time, but I think about whether we're then overbuilding so the city's not able to support. Does that make sense? Or we're going to keep funding to support a pool. And I'm not trying to knock a pool. I know it's probably in the master plan for the Parks and Recreation, but yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Well, no, I think you're right on. I mean, pool's a large example, but it doesn't make any sense to create something that we nor the city can maintain financially.
Right.
So I like Shar's point of kind of filling in the gaps, right? So when you look at a master plan, you look at where there may be a void or a gap that we can kind of help fill, but there's an overall infrastructure to support that gap, that funding.
You know what? So the downtown park, they went out for bids, and the bids came in much higher than anybody estimated. And so now the city's kind of doing some reverse engineering to see what they can delay or exclude from that initial construction project. Maybe that's a place where we can step in. That is,
That makes sense.
If it turns out that we're not going to get the bathrooms done because then maybe we fund the bathrooms or some specific chunk of that park. People would give to that, we could put our name on it.
Yes. Yep.
Like,
That's the kind of insight that we need.
So I continue to go back to the top group, the vulnerable populations. And, you know, indeed, this is a current issue, but I think even after our first fundraiser, you know, helping with food, the urgency is still there. I continue to go back to some of our very early discussions about what does our community look like. And it seems to me there was a united way. Maybe it was called Alice. Does that ring a bell, Alex? About, you know, the families that are in a situation where they're only making ends meet. And it was something like 28% of Royal Oak is in that position back then. So with, you know, a $200 car repair, that would throw a monkey wrench in the whole system that they have in terms of, you know, being able to afford their utilities and food, etc. And so it's not, I mean, when I continue to think of about 30% of our population was set up in that kind of a situation a couple of years ago, I'm nervous to know what the number is now or what has happened to that 30%. And so, Alex, I wonder, do you have any feedback from the United Way for current situations? Because I don't know that it would be a negative to continue with some of these short-term urgency items because they are, you know, relatively quick successes for us if they follow what has happened in this first fundraiser. But it also really taps into a need. And that's just where I'm coming from thinking about this. Not to say that I don't like doing something for the Centennial Park, you know, and having our name on it.
Julie, while you were talking about that as a need, it made me think, you know, our focus is fundraising. Do we want to, in that focus, also make sure that people understand the resources that are available in the community? Is there any need for that to know that some of the stats you were talking about to help people understand what the poverty situation is in Royal Oak, and that we are, you know, we worked with these three groups, they're great resources, please go to them, we've helped them raise money. And then are there any other resources that the city has that they give out when people call and ask that, you know, to kind of at least publicize, to point someplace people can go to get more help and assistance in the city?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that is part of Judy David's job or perhaps Carol's, if she's answering, you know, the phone at the beginning. But I do know about the Inter-Club Council. You know, that's a group of nonprofits and other organizations that gets together in Royal Oak every second Friday. So I plan on being a part of that this Friday. Because I think it would be good exposure for us, for them to know about the Royal Oak Civic Foundation, and then on the other hand, for us to know about them and what are some of the needs that they're seeing right now might translate to how we could help. I wouldn't obligate us, of course, but that might be a way or a venue in which, if there is not this kind of, you know, quick understanding of where someone could find resources, that group could help facilitate such a thing.
Right. I'd be curious to look at some of the funds that we have raised that are in our coffers to be an extension of the project that we're currently running. And that's about how we get information to people to know what the resources are as well. And I say that knowing that there are a number of groups doing food insecurity, and there's a kind of a circuit that in Detroit, in Royal Oak, either between churches and some different nonprofit organizations as well too. So how could we invest a small amount of our dollars to make sure that there was some sort of promotion of the resources that are in the community that connects to the fundraiser we're currently in?
Another, yes, along those lines, Tom, another thought that popped in my head is I know talking to Forgotten Harvest, for example, just in general, I was amazed in talking to them that we have this huge amount and huge need for food. And we actually have a tremendous amount of food that is out there that goes to waste. And their biggest challenge is matching. You know, how do they get the food to people? And I wonder, I don't know, but it might be worth exploring. Is there a hurdle or some impediment that we could help with? Is it a storage issue? Is it something that we might be able to help the local charities with? I don't know, and it's just worth exploring. But I know that there's a huge demand for food and there's a huge supply for food is what I'm being told. And it's matching them up is the challenge in distribution. And maybe that the dollar amounts are, you know, far too big for us to try to tackle, but it might be worth the conversation.
That's a good point. In my mind's eye right now, I'm seeing that we will announce the support that the community has provided and thank them for it, and then use that platform to expend some of our dollars for whatever promotional materials are helpful or connections that we can make, either through nonprofit organizations, some of the shelters as well, or here are the resources that we've supported, here's how to connect with them, and here's even more resources that are in or adjacent to the Royal Oak community as a kind of an awareness campaign as well, so that we can address even more of the issue with information. You're on mute.
We haven't really talked about this, but my vision of the foundation is not as a programmatic agency, but as a funding agency. That is, our job isn't to provide information about stuff, but if there is an underfunded newspaper or disinformation disseminating organization, that they would come to us and we would give them money to publish their newsletter or whatever it is. So as we approach this, again, I'm trying not to give Julie more work. I want her work to be just writing checks. So as we look at this, let's look for a local organization where money will make a difference.
So then that would lead me to, can we make an additional grant to either the organizations we're connected with to help them with their information dissemination about making sure people know they're aware? Would that fit in that same philosophy then? So we're connecting it by funding it, but not programming it.
I want to know that that's true. I mean, that there is an actual need there. It may well be that between, the senior center and the social service agencies, that there is plenty of information and they are referring effectively. I mean, we haven't identified a problem here.
So when we identified food insecurity in partnership, I think with the PR team at the City of Royal Oak, how did they assess this as a need, and would they be able to help us also assess the information gap?
Yeah, you can ask Judy and Carol, and in 5 minutes they'll tell you.
Yeah, and again, back to the Interclub Council, Judy Davids is, I think they're past president. So I think that is a source of a lot of her information relative to what's going on in the city. And I'm going as her guest, so I can certainly ask her that then, and just continue the conversation. Because she's a wealth of knowledge relative to what's going on here.
In that sense, then I'd love to provide, if we all think it's appropriate, I would love to provide a grant, a communication grant to these folks to be able to augment their promotions with our funding. So we are providing the resource, and they are communicating as they know best. Thoughts?
So,
is that on focus or not? And you're welcome to tell me that it feels off focus.
I still like my parks idea.
And I also love your parks idea too. I'm just saying, I'd like to do both. In my mind's eye, it'd be great to give an extension to the project we just did, and then something new that's visible and commemorative.
My thoughts right now are, and again, we're not deciding anything tonight. I like the parks idea. I don't know what the cost of that is, but I like the parks idea. I think we have to kind of sprinkle this around a little bit, right? So I think, you know, each year we do need to do something for vulnerable populations. You know, we've done a fundraiser with them. I'd love to meet with them and find out where their needs are. Is it a communication need? Is it a, you know, where is their need? And hear it from them where they could really use the help. No different than, you know, so we're looking at Parks and Rec. We're looking for where there's a gap. I think we could do the same thing with the food pantries, et cetera, and then bring it back for discussion. And then decide what we're funding, you know, and, you know, what our initiatives are for the upcoming year.
All right, any closing comments on this topic? We wanted to express some opinions and give us some time to think through for our next meeting for decisions. We gave ourselves a 15-minute window, and I think we're at it. Other thoughts?
I have one more quick thought. My remote computer has gone awry here, so sorry about that. So I'm going to try to remember what was on that sheet, but it seems to me one of the items was there is perceived gap in getting seniors to vaccination sites. And I wonder, you know, could that be the vulnerable population that we help in the second iteration? Not necessarily the food pantries, but, you know, giving some more money for the senior centers, senior buses to pick people up for appointments. I mean, I don't know exactly what the need is, but I'm just thinking, you know, back to, you know, the greater vote number from the commissioners about this urgent need for our vulnerable populations. If indeed that's true, that they're not all centered around food.
Correct. You know, when I saw that list, what kind of struck me was I definitely think those are needs. There could be a role for us, but what I do think, if I was the city, or I would talk to the county first. I can tell you they have millions and millions of dollars that they're receiving from the federal government to help with these things. Now, maybe there's a role for us. Maybe there's something we can help with. But I think the solution is very costly, and there may be funding from the feds to the county that can help with this. And I don't know if they've explored those options yet.
Okay. And
What do we need at our next meeting? We need to know if there is a discrete, if there's something we can get our arms around easily, and in the COVID/human needs area that needs money that we can raise. I mean, we have to look and see if we can raise money for it and if we can be effective. So I would say talking to Julie, or to Judy and Carol and maybe Paige at the senior center. If, you know, if Julie can do that, or some of us can do that and report back, they're going to have a good handle on it.
Yeah.
okay.
So, and I'll go to the city and find out what the park needs.
All right, great. So it sounds like we've got our marching orders for our next meeting.
So who will tie the bell on that cat's tail?
So I'll talk to Paige.
Okay.
And I say that because the senior transportation program is funded by Beaumont. So
That's right.
and you're going to handle the park ones. What else? Communication needs. Julie, are you okay with reaching out to Judy?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to be meeting on Friday anyway.
Okay, great.
With the Interclub Council.
All right, and let's all plan to report back to provide some additional context for our next meeting. All right, let's keep moving on our agenda. Next is funding process for entities discussion. And this kind of connects to our big picture visioning it. If we wanted to do some sort of community engagement opportunity for people to vote on what was important to them. And our prior discussion centered on, was this an annual process? How did we want to attack this? So that's the context for this topic. What thoughts do you have? On your mark, set, go.
I'm typing.
Do we want to consider an annual community engagement discussion where we are asking people to weigh in on what City Commission has identified as top priorities? So our regular communication cycle is City Commission gives us the list of ideas, we do the homework, kind of like we're doing right now, and then we take a survey to the public. As if people weigh in on what they think is important, the logical thought is that they will support it.
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah, no, I was going to say there's so many tools out there that are free. I mean, we could probably put a form builder on the webpage. There's SurveyMonkey, there's Google Forms, there's the Mentimeter, which we toyed with earlier on. We could do an annual fundraising event like we're doing right now. I'm just thinking there's a lot of easy ways to get some community engagement around this. And, obviously with the qualifier that we won't always choose the number one item. I don't mean to keep harping on the pool, but like a pool is a perfect item where that's probably outside of our scope. So we'll defer to the city about that. So I that's just kind of my thought, especially if we're leading up to, so like an annual meeting or something like that, or maybe the annual meeting is when we do that. So those are my thoughts. Sorry, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. There we go.
Open to that. The only thing I'm scratching my head a little bit in the sense that I think there's some value to it, but do we, so when we ask the commissioners, the question as far as strategic direction and where the greatest needs are, do we already have our answer as representatives of the public? Just curious. I'm curious. I'm just questioning maybe the value of it. Not that it's not valuable, but will we learn anything we don't already know?
We don't know yet.
I think your point is, and I agree with it, that if we have to be strategic and align with the city, we can't throw out just a list of here's some great ideas and then build the barn. It'll come. So we do have that representation from City Commission. What we don't have it though is the community endorsement of it and their engagement in it. And that's the piece that, is it done through a survey or is there another method? Maybe that's the question we answer.
I am less inclined to, and Pete makes an excellent point. The City Commission is the elected representatives of the people of Royal Oak, and yet they bring to the process knowledge of more than just that. That is, more than what the citizens need, but also what the community needs. And so I'm less inclined to think about crowdsourcing this, because I think when you ask people what do the community need, what does Royal Oak need, they're all going to say a swimming pool and better schools, neither of which are really within our scope. A foundation has the ability to focus on something. You want something where there's a need, but you can target that need in order to perhaps enhance a function that you strategically think is important, if you get my drift.
I like it from the perspective of just getting more people engaged. I do like the idea of vote with dollars, and we did a match now. Could be we do an extra bonus for the winner, like that kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe I explain how that would work. Like So I'm starting to see the value from a promotional standpoint, right? So I guess, Alex, what would that look like? Like, maybe I just don't understand.
Yeah, I was thinking of that from a fundraising perspective, similar to what we're doing now with the match donations for the 3 organizations. But then we could say, we could say we'll match up to $1,000 for, you know, these organizations, and then whomever the winner gets another $1,000 or something like that. That would be for, I would look to that for more like legacy organizations though, since I know that's part of our charge. Otherwise, I would look at just general broad-based community engagement as a positive thing. And I'm looking at it from a perspective of like, fill out this, you know, short form. We get more people's information to communicate to them about like upcoming opportunity, you know, future opportunities. That perspective is what I'm looking at from as far as just building our audience and universe.
So we would have people vote to not only get a sense of direction, but to build a database of contact information too.
Well said.
Okay.
Sorry.
So where are we going to get our money? I mean, if we need a pot of money to do stuff, I mean, it's one thing to raise, people give us money for this thing and we spend the money on that thing. We also need sort of our own fund. So I'm kind of backing into this question, not so much looking at needs, but looking at what will people give money for?
See, and I'm not an expert on this, but my experience, just personally, even is people. That's why I was talking about mixing it up a little bit. That's why I like the Parks and Rec idea too. I think people have different areas that they have a tendency to give money towards, and I think when you know, depending on what you're fundraising for, you'd market it differently. So when I think Parks and Rec, I think of more of a partnership with the schools, right? Getting it out to the families. You know, so I think people have their own passions and interests, and they'll give money. You know, you might give $500 to this, but maybe much less to something else, even though they're both worthwhile causes.
Other thoughts?
I think I need to sleep on this.
Okay. I have a similar opinion to Alex about the activity of engaging people in the information to engage them in the solution for it as well. I think we all have similar thoughts on that, but you know, is it something that we look at as a process where we are getting our marching orders from the city? We get a list of those things that they think are valuable and doable, and then we translate it to the community for their input and for their help. And let's maybe talk about that in our next meeting. Is it that process, or should there be something else that we're doing community engagement oriented? Because we have lots of tools that we could consider. You know, digital experience, storytelling, events, crowdfunding events, corporate matches as ways to engage the community in different ways too. So there's a few tools that we can discuss, but let's figure out what our overall process is so that we have an annual cycle of finding out the need and then fixing it. Okay. Sound good? And pen the conversation for our next gathering.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay. They're all tied together, so we just have to figure out, since we're new, how we do what we do. Let's move forward. We have about 15 minutes left in today's meeting. Gift acceptance from specific industries discussion. This should be fun. we kind of alluded to it earlier. Do we want to have any restrictions on things that would be, I think we consider to be out of sorts with the feds, state, and other things? Please feel free to express your opinion. Sure.
Well, I'm probably the reason this is on the agenda, and that is because Royal Oak Youth Assistance had an offer from a marijuana industry applicant to donate to them. And the Youth Assistance Board felt that as an organization that tries to keep kids away from drugs, maybe we shouldn't be taking money from drug businesses, no matter how legal they are. But it did occur to me that the city of Royal Oak is allowing marijuana establishments. The city commission has moved forward on this. So it didn't seem untoward for us as a foundation to accept donations from marijuana businesses, with the understanding that that would give us a pool of money, and organizations like Youth Assistance could come to us for money, and it would have been laundered, as it were. The money would come from the foundation, not from the marijuana businesses.
Thoughts?
Roll that one up. And
I think you bring up an excellent point, Shar. You could probably tell based on today my discussions, I tend to lean more towards flexibility. So, I think if we can have policies that are flexible, that we can look at things on an individual basis, because there's just so many things that go into it. That's probably where I'll always land on, because you're right. It may not be, it may be more acceptable for us to accept that money than, a youth organization. However, if we do have to contemplate, if we are spending money on youth activities, there's still that connection. So we'd have to think that through.
So I envision us having the Founders Fund, just a general classification of money, and donate non-specific donations, things just for the good of the foundation, would go into the Founders Fund, including marijuana dollars. And then any gifts that we might make or match would just be from our Founders Fund.
I'm with you.
And my only concern is around federal allowance of it, and not having, there's a reason that these businesses are not able to bank, because they're federally insured corporations or businesses. So that's my only concern. And then I worry that, will all of the dollars get tied up that we've, what I mean? Does that make sense? So I'm just worried about that aspect. For me, I don't think we'd be able to give a charitable receipt. So whether, if an owner of such an establishment made a donation, then we've become so far removed from the any concerns. But Tom, what do you think?
I have mixed feelings about it, based on, we certainly want to be able to accept dollars, but the public perception, I think, is something we have to discuss. There's certain organizations who raise funds. If it's a health organization, how do you accept money from a certain industry if it might be counterintuitive to health? So I'm very sensitive to the impact of that. So as a civic organization, we are trying to improve the community. Would there be any public perception that what we are doing is not improving the community by accepting those dollars? And we'll have to answer that question. Or we'll need a mechanism that allows us to determine on a case-by-case basis on how funds that may have that question mark attached to them are appropriate for civic purposes. Meaning, do we have, in those questionable situations, a mechanism to take it through the city commission so that it has a public stamp of approval on it?
So what are we trying to answer today? Is it whether or not we want a policy on this, or whether we want to just keep it open-ended? I guess, what are we?
Related, yeah. I think, do we need a policy on it? Because a policy definitely puts us into something very specific and that is judgeable. And we also want to be inclusive at the same time, but it's a tough question to answer. Do we have any, what if there's any other civic foundations who have made some rulings on this that we can look into from a best practice standpoint, or how they're answering that question? I think we should table it for the next meeting and give it some more thought. What's the benefit and what's the consequence, and what are the unintended consequences of it too, that we're being thoughtful. But Pete, know that I probably sit closest to you, that I do like the flexibility, but we just have to think through unintended consequences too. And are there any that we would not anticipate now?
I'll take their money. But it has to be a check, not cash, which to Alex's point does kind of may potentially limit their ability to give.
No bags of money. Sure.
I think the decision really has to be, I guess in my mind, the policy is restrictive, but it also gives you some cover when trying to make these difficult decisions, right?
Look,
When they come up. But I still tend to lean towards, we look at a case by case, no policy, and we take into consideration everything. We take into consideration the spirit of it, the organization, the use of it, society at that point in time. I mean, 20 years ago, this would have been you wouldn't even be talking about, marijuana production giving money to a foundation, right? So I tend to lean more towards not having a policy and just look at it as a case by case basis, where this board would debate it and make a decision. And that might be exactly where we end up landing, Shar, that we would take their money.
Mr. Liss have an opinion here?
You're on mute.
Looks like what he's saying is very thoughtful.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
I just rejoined the meeting. The city servers crashed.
Oh.
That's why you were having problems, Julie.
This was such a hot
Yeah,
topic, it crashed the servers. Oh.
Could have something to do with, IS over at the police department. But from what I heard, it was a question about having an organization that sells marijuana or deals with marijuana, making a contribution.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, there is some concern, as stated previously in the meeting, with Alex about whether or not that would cross the IRS. But I'm guessing that question has been answered. It would just take me a little bit of time to find the answer.
So we've sort of decided to table this till our next meeting. Perhaps, Mark, you could bring us back some information on that subject at that time?
I'd like to. Yeah, thank you.
Are there particular questions that we have for Mark?
I think that's a good one.
Right. So we've pended a lot of things to into our next agenda for sure. Some fun discussions. It's going to be a good meeting. That being said, it looks like we are at our next meeting agenda development section of our agenda. So let's review what we've moved forward. And under unfinished business, we still have the status of accounting, the Kitch and the interim city attorney opinion. Let's plan to keep the kickoff event and fundraiser update as well. Third party we approved, so that comes off. City Commission priorities discussion, that also resumes.
I I disagree. I mean, I think we've said it, we've read it, it'll color our decisions, but I don't know that we need to revisit it.
So are we moving that discussion into the big picture visioning then?
Yeah,
Okay.
the foundation for that.
Okay, so we're taking off 13 and big picture visioning. The action point on that is for us to begin narrowing our focus. Funding process for entities. I think we also decided to rejoin that conversation, as well as gift acceptance from specific industries. Anything else? Anything I missed? All right, if there's no other, I'm sorry, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so with 5 minutes to spare, I will, is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye by roll call. Start with you, Pete,
Aye.
Shar,
Aye.
and Alex.
Aye.
I'm also an aye, and our next meeting date is
March 10th.
March 10th, 3 o'clock.
I will be phoning in from Cape Coral, Florida.
Excellent. Please make sure you put some beach pictures in your background.
Poolside.
Love it. Well, enjoy your vacation and safe travels, and thank you all for your time today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Take
See
care,
you all.
everyone.
See you, everybody.